Well, the Lord promised them if they would serve him, that they'd have food, they'd have housing, they would have protection from enemies and animals.
Yes.
He's just faithful.
Yes. Faithful to his promises, and he would have, he was faithful.
Yes.
If they would have stayed faithful, then things might have been a whole lot different.
And probably would have been.
Well, another thing is God doles out his promises and blessings as he chooses. He
Yes.
doesn't have any
Right.
preferences. How he
You
chooses.
can't do anything to earn it. Yeah. He blesses who he blesses and doesn't bless who he doesn't bless.
Another thing, I didn't realize that if you disbelieve in him, it's the same thing as taking his name in vain.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I
Disbelief.
thought his words, well, and I guess if you disbelieve, you're saying it, it's the same thing, but
Yeah.
different. You normally think of it, right?
And that is also tied very closely to sorcery in several verses. Disbelief.
It was.
Yeah. So God takes those things very seriously, and we should too. Be very, very careful how we use God's name. And remember, to take his name in vain isn't primarily talking about cursing. It's talking about living or talking in such a way that his name is empty or meaningless. And that's the whole point, is that we need to remember that his name is powerful, and his name is it represents him, and we should not ever take it in an empty way.
Right. He's not just the man upstairs.
That's right. He's not. And I've heard lots of Christians say that.
I have
Just
too.
kind of like, yeah, it's probably not. Shouldn't be saying that. Number one, he's not a man. Okay. Probably first and foremost. In fact, that's what he told. Yes, that's what Balaam told Balak. We just talked about last week. God is not a man that he should lie, or son of man that he should change his mind. That's where that came from.
Mhm.
And sometimes I forget that. I know it's there someplace, but when he was blessing the Israelites, and Balak was like, "Why do you keep doing that? I brought you here to curse them, and you keep blessing them." He said, "Well, God's not a man that he should change his mind." So. Anything else? What I had to share is going to be really short tonight. So. In fact, I can only remember one part of it, so we'll see. I remember the other part. I didn't have it written down.
He's very patient with us also.
Oh yeah, very patient. The Bible is very clear about that. That he's long suffering, not wanting anyone to perish, and all the time of repentance.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness.
Yes. Yes. I wanted to start off with telling you a little story. I heard this and I read it or whatever a long time ago. But it's called the one-pitch strikeout. Have you ever heard of a one-pitch strikeout? It actually happened. I think it was in a minor league game, but pitch was thrown, the batter, it was called strike, and the batter didn't agree. So he turned around and started arguing with the ref, stepped out of the batter's box and started arguing with the ref. And he argued and argued and argued. And, well, there's a rule that if you get out of the batter's box and you don't get back in it within a certain amount of time, then I can call a strike on you. So the warned him, and he just kept on, so he called a strike. And he kept on, got madder about it, and kept on, called another strike, and he was struck out with one pitch. One pitch strikeout. Really speaks to us about our anger sometimes, right? We have to be very, very careful. What happened to Moses?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny that he was trying all angles to try to talk God out.
Yeah.
And then there at the last, he said, if those guys hadn't done that,
Yeah,
I wouldn't have done what I did,
Kind of
So
blame it on them.
Tried to blame him, but it didn't do any good.
Didn't do any good, that's right. And you look, I like the way she pointed out the fact that, Moses probably had a problem with anger. We know he got mad at the the Egyptian, and killed him. And it was probably something that he struggled with a lot. But I can relate. I mean, if I've never been in charge of 3 million people, but I have been in charge of 30, 35 middle schoolers all at once, and several other classes that were maybe not quite that big, and they can get on your nerves.
Amen.
And I can imagine what he went through for 40 years, going and trying, and then just keep doing all of these same things over and over and over. I'm sure he got really frustrated, and it just finally came out.
You can understand why he thought that would work, because he had talked to God about forgive these people,
Yes.
And so he thought maybe he could get forgiven.
Yeah. Well, and at least once, and I think it was actually 2 different times. I know it's talked about twice, but God basically said, move away from them, let me just wipe them all out and start all over with you. And Moses was like, no. The Jewish people, the Egyptians would think poorly of you, basically, that you did this and couldn't get them into the land that you promised. But what does that tell us, all of us, about the standard that God puts on us as Christians and leaders of our churches, leaders, whether Sunday school teachers or whatever? The Bible, it says, to whom much is given, much will be required, and I think this is a perfect example of that. God talked to Moses face to face, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else he ever did that with, not even Abraham. And so when Moses messed up, it was a big deal, and he suffered for it. And we as Christians, we've been given a lot. We as American Christians have especially been given a lot. And that's one of the things I really like about what we're doing, as far as all of us reading through the Bible at the same time, because so many times I think a lot of Christians, and especially in America, never crack their Bible open during the week. And I think I told y'all one time I counted it, and I think, not counting the ones on my computer and my Kindle and all that kind of stuff, I think I have about 29 Bibles in my house. Yeah, and y'all may not have that many, but I'm sure you've got multiple ones. And you think about these people in some of these foreign countries that they don't even have a whole Bible. When they get one, I know it sounds terrible, but they'll tear it apart so that they can share parts of the Bible with a whole bunch of different people, so that they'll at least have a little bit. And then they share it and pass it around. And here we have multiple Bibles in our homes, and a lot of times don't read.
I'm sure it was all in my mind, but I thought I was taught, not to write in it because it was so precious,
Yeah.
And it took me the longest time to mark in my Bible, because
Yeah.
that was, sacred or whatever,
I used to, for the most part, I just put a little circle around the verse number, you know. But I've underlined that off in this one. Most of the time, the one I preach out of, I don't do any of it. It's all on paper when I write it out or print it out, because I can do that, and then I mark all over it and write and
No damage.
do everything. Doesn't yet. So, tell me the story of the snakes.
Snakes, is that what you said, snakes?
Snakes. How many of you like snakes? Anybody? Do you like snakes? I wouldn't say I like. There are some that I don't mind. Dead ones. No, I'm not kidding. As long as they're not right by me or not picking them up or whatever.
As long as they don't stink, they're all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But tell me the story of the snakes. Out in the
People were
wilderness.
getting bit by snakes.
Why?
Because they wouldn't go into
And
the promised land.
they wouldn't go to the promised land. They were grumbling about
Was
everything.
that when, was that when they turned that down? Okay, and then they told them if they would look at the stick with the snake on it, they wouldn't get bit, or it wouldn't kill them.
They wouldn't die.
They wouldn't die,
Yeah.
because they were biting everything.
Yes. Yeah. Think about that. God could have just eliminated the snakes, right? He didn't do that, did
He
he?
needed for them to show him that they were listening to him and would obey something that he said, which is
And-
important for later on.
Faith. You think about it also, I mean, I may have talked about it. Did I talk about this last week? I've talked about it sometime recently, about how, you know, we would think, okay, you need to suck the poison out, and, you know, the all the old westerns where they cut it. Why you cut it, I don't know, because you already got holes there. You don't need to cut, and then they use their mouth to suck it, which will get them poison in you.
Oh, you're supposed to spit real fast.
Yeah.
Spit real fast.
If you have one little suction cup, that's fine. Otherwise, just, you know, tighten the tourniquet and let it loose and get some antibiotics in them very quickly. But we would try all of that kind of stuff, but God said all you have to do is just look at that snake. That takes some faith. Believing, and the same thing is true about our salvation. You know, Jesus said, all you have to do is ask. And it seems so simple, but it takes faith. Believe that, you know, God is going to do what He said He'd do. If you believe in Him, you confess, you turn your life over to Him, and that was not the one I was really talking about. What happened to the snake on the pole, bronze serpent?
They got destroyed later on.
Yeah, but why? What happened before it was destroyed? Before they destroyed it?
It became an object of worship.
Yeah, they began to worship it.
Which they tried to do everything that
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also a warning, I guess, to us to be sure we're very careful about what we allow to take that first place in our lives. That was one of the other things I was going to talk about. So the cities of refuge, what were they for?
For those that killed somebody by accident.
Killed somebody by accident, didn't do it with malice or forethought or anything that way. And why? Why would they go to the city of refuge?
Keep them being killed, keep them being hunted down.
Right, the kinsman redeemer, the close relative. The close relative not only had the could hunt them down. But it was kind of his responsibility to do that, to avenge their relatives' death. I mean, that's also true in a lot of westerns and stuff about how, oh, you killed my brothers and I'm going to kill you, right? Or you killed my best friend. That's kind of the same idea, and it was to help to eliminate or murder. I mean, because people would know if they murdered somebody, they were going to probably get killed too, which kind of makes your, I guess, your desire to do that not so much. But they would go to the city of refuge if it was done accidentally. So what would happen once they got in the city of refuge?
You had to stay until the king died. Was it the king? No.
The high priest.
High priest died.
But once they got there, they would have to plead their case to the leaders of the city. Because if the leaders of the city realized that they really did it on purpose, then they offer them up to be killed right then. I mean, they're not going to let them stay in the city of refuge if they were guilty.
Something I didn't realize though was why when the high priest died,
Mhm.
because somebody is dying
Right.
and therefore an vengeance of that.
Right.
I mean, I don't think I ever went past that part, to
Yeah.
find out why the priest was the one, what it
It had to be
represented.
somebody that died to get the forgiveness of the sin.
Wonder how many people walked out at once.
I don't know. I mean, some people may have just, I don't really like it here, we've got a hometown, so I'll just stay here. But they'd probably always want to go back to their ancestral home where they had that, unless they were a younger son that did not get the ancestral home, so.
Well, they were to stay in that city until the year of Jubilee,
Right,
and then they could
yes.
be
in the year
they
Jubilee,
go
they got
back
their stuff back, yeah.
to their possessions.
Yep. And I just had something else on that I was going Oh, the kinsman redeemer. We're going to learn a lot more about it in the book of Ruth. Jesus is described as our kinsman redeemer. He shed his blood so that we could have forgiveness. You had to be able to provide the redemption, which Jesus did. You could not owe anything yourself, which Jesus didn't. He didn't sin, so he didn't owe anything. It had to be willing, which he was. Might be forgetting something. Willing, able, and not owe anything yourself. And Jesus met all of it. Oh, and a close relative. That was him. Had to be a close relative, which is the main reason, or maybe not the main reason, but one of the reasons that Jesus became a human, is so that he could relate to us and have that close.
Well, if we're Christians, we're adopted in the family anyway.
Yes. Yeah. That's right. Okay, I told you it's going to be short, so y'all have anything else you want to share? So I'm going to give you back a few minutes from last week and the week before, and next week and the week after. No, not next week. You're going to get the whole time next week.
You need to explain that. She's,
I won't be here next week. We're going to be out of town.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking, why?
Maybe you're going by yourself.
Just
So,
Wednesday. I'm going on.
I announced earlier and asked them what they wanted to do, and Mike said we could just have an extended choir practice, and so that's what they all want to do this week.
So they're starting at the same time?
No, it started at 6.
Oh, okay.
Just have choir practice for an hour and a half.
Just in case she's around, she wants to know.
So if anybody else shows up that's not here tonight, they can have to join the choir?
Yes, yeah, hey, there you go.
Good idea.
way to get away with
Anybody that just shows up.
So, Bob, do you think you remember to announce that Sunday?
What was it?
What we're doing next week? Can you announce that Sunday?
I'll announce that you're going on vacation and Cecilia's not going.
She's going on a cruise.
She's two separate ones. Yes, I can announce that.
Thank you. She's been, you know, making all the arrangements, or what, she's been looking to make arrangements. If we go someplace, she's gonna be the one making all that, so she'll have to go. Right? All right, well, let's stand and we'll join hands and we'll sing a dismissal chorus. We got something we can sing? Sandra, you wanna pick up a song for us?
I got one
I'll
on the
bring
screen.
that one.
One of us anyway.
Our God